This is how financial freedom dies, and we need to stop it. It dies at the Bible verse, a little sleep, a little slumber, and poverty takes over. We know what God says in the Bible. I've read, I've heard, but yet taking actions is something that many are lacking. We're afraid of taking risk, afraid of going beyond our comfort zone, afraid of thinking big, afraid of going after God has called us to. Because what if we get mocked? What if people talk about us? What if people say that we're not what we are, that we're not worthy? What if everything that we would go after, it's gonna be the story that people are gonna laugh at? That's what kills dreams, financial freedom, God's impact. Because then all those thoughts fold our hands into sleeping and slumbering state. And although many blame external factors, blame their past, blame their parents, blame their neighbors, their teachers, they never stop and take responsibility for the steps they didn't take or that they should take in their life. And who am I to speak about that? God shook me really hard and woke me up. I'm still working on it. Now, as someone who has a degree in finance, a Wall Street Journal best-selling author of Destined for Wealth, that managed over $450 million for the #1 Fortune 500 energy company on this planet, and got an MBA from a top 20 business school, I was far from being more spiritual and very close and ingrained in practical. But I realized that the spiritual and godly purpose is what fuels the practical. It's not the other way around. It's not when I get here, then I'll have more time for God. It's not when God blesses me, then I will see that God exists. But is the belief before you see or before it's given to you. This folding of the hands, this rest, this slumber and this sleep, it's coming from the enemy to rob you from what you were created and destined to do in this world. See, if you think about darkness, can you actually create darkness? You cannot create darkness. Darkness is the absence of light. And the beliefs that you have in your mind, that many of us have in our minds, are darkness. And unless we bring God's truth in our life about wealth, about prosperity, then we live a life in darkness. We need to turn the light in our head on in order for darkness to not exist. And how do you turn that light? You go back to the truth in the Bible. The way I stopped that darkness happening in my life is I turned to the truth in the Bible. I have understood that working on my mindset, on my subconscious set of beliefs, is the first thing that I absolutely need to focus on. Because this is where I make decisions from, I take actions from. Then I understood that I need to steward the money that God has given me and then multiply what He has given me so that I can move with gratitude by helping others. See, we have all of these excuses in our mind about the things that are happening outside of us, the things that happen to us in our childhood, the stories, all of that stuff. And then we fall into the weakness and we don't go after what was destined for us in our lifetime and kingdom impact that we were made for. We get stuck in the web of lies, in the web of that darkness full of lies, and then we rest. We don't take actions. We sleep, we slumber, we give ourselves excuses. We don't want to take the risk. We don't want to move forward because of what could, should happen. That's when brokenness and poverty comes over. We also use the excuse of God doesn't want us to be wealthy. Jesus didn't come here for us to be wealthy. He came to sacrifice Himself and He loved the poor. You and I are not Jesus. He had His purpose. He was not against wealth. He was against making wealth your idol or making anything else but God, your idol. But he was not against wealth. He went to everyone's house. As a matter of fact, the word was spread to the Gentiles from the goodness of a woman that was very wealthy, that accepted the apostles in her house so they can be fed and have a place to sleep, have the ability to spread the word. She was the one who got baptized and accepted God and had her entire family come to God. Her name was Lydia. That's another story that God gives us to understand that wealth is not the enemy. It's what's needed to be used to advance his kingdom and have an impact. But when it comes to wealth, the actions that we need to take is really understanding where your negative beliefs come from. What is sabotaging you from moving towards what God has called you to, especially when it comes to wealth? And that is work on your mindset. And I talk about mindset extensively in my Millionaire Investor Group Coaching Workshop, which is free and you can sign up for it below. What I also talk about in that workshop is the importance of stewarding what God has given you now, what he has trusted you with now. A little slumber, a little sleep over the stewarding and managing money, such as I will start managing it whenever I have more, or I would look at it whenever I get a chance, or I want to spend it on this and I want to get this and it will be okay, and you close your eyes and don't look at what you're doing in terms of your money. If you have a lot of money, you can have the same behavior, regardless if you have a lot or if you have little, 100K or 10 million. And I guarantee that regardless of the amount of money that a person has, they have drainages where their money is flowing out of their hands and pockets because they don't manage it. Think about how many lives don't get impacted because that money got just drained out, and how many more lives could be impacted if that money would be managed and stewarded according to God's will, so that now you can move more money into multiplying, which is the other thing that God has called us to do. Again, a little slumber, a little sleep on the multiplication, and poverty comes our way. Why? Because we don't want to take risks, or because we're afraid, or because we don't know what's going on, we hold on from investing. If we're afraid, we need to learn more about it so we can take calculated risk, because life is not without risk. You take a risk by riding a motorcycle. You take less risk by driving a car. You take risk climbing a mountain, or you take a smaller risk just walking on a flat surface. There's a greater risk that you will twist your ankle on climbing a mountain than on a flat surface, but the risk is still there. Multiplication is what allows you to give freely, what allows you to impact, and not only impact others, but impact your own life. I know that many feel this verse, I am not going outside because there might be a lion there. Yes, if you invest, you might lose your money, you might gain money. But the key is learning about investing so that you can take calculated risk. And I cover this in the Millionaire Investor Group Coaching Workshop. You can get inside the workshop absolutely free below. When you master these 3 steps, you now take care of your family. You now have kingdom impact. You now feel empowered to make the decisions that you couldn't in the past. You find freedom in your life because you found freedom in God's wisdom when it comes to wealth. You find freedom in providing for your family what they need and leaving inheritance to the generations after generation, because that's what God called us to do, because you have mastered these things. And you move that money to impact other people's lives. But all of this hangs on one thing. It's you taking action. It's you not folding your hands for a little sleep or a little slumber and just hearing my voice or hearing God's nudge and putting it aside and doing nothing. God can give you all the information, can bring you all the nudges, but He can't make you do it. You can bring a horse to the water. You can't make that horse drink it. It's in your power. It's in your decision. That's why partnership with God is so important. And it's not something that is by accident. God will give you what you need, but you have to do your part. You have to take action. You have to do the work. So what are you going to do? Are you just going to leave it aside and take another message in and move on with your day? Or are you going to take action and boldly move into the direction and purpose that God has for you in this life?